Okay, let's talk about the Glen Rose dinosaur tracks found here in Texas, about 100 miles or a little more southwest of Dallas-Fort Worth area, kind of in between there and Waco, offset a little. These are dinosaur tracks that are in an ancient riverbed that's been re-exposed again from this riverbed coming in and eating it away, and it occasionally dries away. And around about 1909, there was a real good rain and flood that had come, and it etched away a good part of it, and people coming through there noticed these tracks that were there. They said some of them were huge. They were the size of baby bathtubs, if you will, and they thought that they may be from mammoths. And when the other guys got out to check it out, it was a few different types of tracks that were found there. And the one that they first investigated was a three-toed dinosaur, and it's the one that becomes famed with the spot as any T-Rex type would, because it was a T-Rex type dinosaur, a little smaller though, kind of like an Allosaurus, and it's known as acroacantherus. And had its little arms and everything, but a little smaller than T-Rex, nowhere near as big as what you think of Jurassic Park, but in a way, during its time. And these are some of its tracks walking across here. And this is just a picture that's taken probably from somebody on a selfie stick held up in the air a little. But if you'd be able to get up above it, you'd be able to see these tracks running through at different points, and it shows you a little better poignant type of look. So I'll tell you about the couple of anomalies that go along with it. Well, first of all, the first anomaly is the fact that dinosaurs walked in an ancient riverbed like you walking across a beach. But don't think of it as the ocean, which that keeps covering up and so on. Let's think of it as a beach that's near a lake or a riverbed that keeps expelling every once in a while. But then climate change happens somehow, and you walk across it, you're the last one that does during a flood that happens during the flip-flop of stopping, and you're the last thing that walks across it and leaves tracks that end up getting re-exposed, and they look, well, surely not their age, of 107 million years ago. And it gets re-exposed. And you see one set of tracks running from bottom left here up through the middle, up through the right, and out the picture. And another set coming out of the side left. And if you can see it at the very top there, let me see if I can lower this down just a hair. You can see that there's a fence line that's there with barbed wire. And just on the other side of the barbed wire, there's a stretch running across left to right. Right? Everybody can see those. It must have rained just a little bit before this picture was taken, a few days maybe, for they've got little puddles in all the little footprints that are still there, and the tracks. So just to leave that alone would be an incredible anomaly, but the anomaly that goes with this is these other tracks that you see running straight up from the middle, running straight down that run, are human footprints. And they're all a human-sized foot. And you can see it going here, finger of God, left, right, right next to this dinosaur track. In fact, the heel impregnates on it. It continues all the way through. In fact, if we could get a picture of this one, there's a place where a dinosaur's track steps on or destroys a human footprint. Now, the idea here is that, of course, humans weren't around whenever these type of dinosaurs were, right? But that humans weren't surely around before dinosaurs to leave a footprint, maybe hours, days, years, million years, whatever, before a dinosaur would have, because it wouldn't destroy the footprint. Because the premise that we all have looking at this, and archaeologists try to do as a way of apologetics for it, was to say that yes, it eroded to a modern point that you see it now, and then a little flood came and sand came over it all, and then the people walked back through that again, and then that all became solidified and became this limestone that's here. Now the problem with that, correct me if I'm wrong, but it takes tens of thousands of years for sedimentary rock to form like that. And of course, under our current guise, which has been destroyed, enveloping over and over again, human type people weren't in the new world over here in the Americas until about 10,000 years ago, whenever that continental ice shelf fell. But right near this site, there's a Gault site that have 18,000-year-old artifacts, but strangely they look like Solutrean artifacts, but that would be people over in Spain and stuff that were over there from about that same time and earlier, which, but that's not what this is about. But surely you can see the depth of each of these footprints, especially the ones that are close in here at the bottom, and that they almost go, but no, not quite, the depth of the dinosaur footprints. And that makes sense, because you weigh a couple of 100 pounds and it weighs a couple of tens of tons. And so it's going to make deeper footprints on there. But I've been there. Let me just go with this. The first time, tell you my experience with this a little bit, because I do live not far away from here. When I was a kid, you heard about this thing, and I remember hearing about it whenever I was young enough to still be watching Fred Flintstone and stuff. And people talked about it, and I said, well, Fred Flintstone, and they said, ha ha ha, and then somebody tried to explain to me how much 1,000 and 100,000 and 1,000,000 years and then 100 million years was. And I believe, looking back at it, I probably didn't understand at all how far that was, because they lost me at, oh my gosh, at 10,000 years, and I'm like, oh wow. And then they go, well, there are 10 of those, and then there's it's 100,000. Okay, well, 10 of those, whole things again. And people hadn't been around that long, and da-da-da and everything. And of course, people were just coming out of the Bible type era. In fact, that's another anomaly that happened in the 70s whenever I was a kid. When people would talk about this, they'd often bring it up in whenever you talk about Bigfoot or the Boggy Creek Monster, which is actually not far from here in Falk, Texas, or any anomalies like that, woo, check this out, and you would mention it. A lot of times people didn't know about it. So it was one of the little things that you could add in. But whenever they found all these tracks, and they found the human tracks, which impinged, like you can tell this one is doing right here, on that dinosaur track. And they've got another one inside the museum, and sadly there was another stretch which it happened to in two places, but one of them was fantastic, and that got destroyed because a overly zealous Christian type person didn't like the idea. Well, he didn't like the idea there was dinosaurs ever in the first place, but also he didn't like that, and there was no Jesus horse thing going on, and Adam was this, that, and the other, and so he came out here and smashed a whole bunch of them and ruined them, basically. From what I understand, the story goes. You can read how different people have their take on it. This is the way we were told when we were kids, and then later, and then so it's kind of compiling it. And I've look through the website and everything and know what they would say in a modern day. And of course, the park is all about that. Isn't it cool enough that just these tracks are here in the first place? But how could you even get human tracks to form sans the dinosaur tracks? If you took the dinosaur tracks out of the situation, you said some human walked through here, okay, how old is that rock? That's about 107 million years old. Do what? See, there becomes the anomaly. Just starkly catching you in the face. Oh, America was a Clovis first, right? Well, no, we figured out that that's been ruined a long time ago. But then, is it 20, 30 years, 35,000 years? We've looked at few things that break 30,000 years, and then all of a sudden there's this 130,000-year-old mammoth that apparently got worked over by something that was capable of doing that. And if you want to even go with a hominid that had got loose or something, and whatever. But that takes boating back much farther than they were willing to agree, or any way of travel like that, which has to go at least 50, 60,000 years ago, or we wouldn't have Australians, the Aborigines. But that's for a different video. So the strange anomaly here is that we've got dinosaur tracks which have been squished upon by human tracks, which are in sedimentary formed limestone. And then this stone was stepped on and ruined, and or the other way around, by dinosaurs and humans. And this is the famous place that you can see now. The other ones have gotten ruined. From what I hear, he came in and smacked up the ones that were like the dinosaur ones. But then I heard another tale, which some of the feedback I got from another thing says this might be true, that a bunch of Christians bought the land and were going to go ahead and make a whole lot better of a place. They already had some visitor type thing going and stuff, but make something a little better, in which they supposedly came up with, which afterwards got even bettered, and then now in a modern day upscaled again. And there are places all around this area too. It's not just this one site, but surrounding it they've made a few different places. Dinosaur Valley National Park, that's a Texas state park that's there, but then they've got another one that's a kids place, and there's a whole bunch of dinosaurs that are set up. I'll try to show you some pictures rather than staring just one picture here in a minute. But those Christians that bought the place supposedly went out there and took a bunch of the human footprints and pecked the ends of them and tried to put 3 toes on the end of it. From what we've heard. And then that got passed over to another group that came out and redid the site a little more and did a trails thing that was a little better, and gave you an idea whenever you leave the shop there that the trail had a certain length, and you could leave out this one place, and if you followed the and along the trail there was these little tags, and everybody just stay along the trail, never get lost. And you would go walk along the trail, but the trail would lead you past a couple of these sites and back. So fast forward to me being in the late 20s, and I had a good friend of mine whose father, down on a lake near there, had a houseboat and everything, and it was real cool to be able to go down there and party on it and do things, but what are you going to do, And we could rent jet skis and things like that and stuff and things, but one of the things we picked out was to go and check this place out, and we went there 2 or 3 days after a little short rain and everything, and they told us that it was better a couple of days ago, but and we found out what they were talking about. There were parts that were flooded in, and I'll kind of show you pictures of that too. Might as well go ahead and do it now and start looking at some different pictures for so I mean, you can easily tell this is a web-footed type duck sauropod type dinosaur that they've got here going. And so we went down through the trails, and you could see it. Like, there are places where you can tell that they walked around and twisted their foots and did things. And whenever we went, instead of it being like that, it was under about 6-8 inches of water. And you couldn't walk right around them, but you could step out and get on that little rock right there and get just real close, and you could really tell that that's what was going on. And one stepped across here and stepped across here and so on, so it's pretty neat. But you get it all dried up, it was like this. In fact, one of the places that we went across there, they already had it sandbagged, and so it would have been underwater like that, but it was still looked like the one on the left here, and it looked like much better. There's another place out there that's got a whole lot of, and by a whole lot, I don't know the count here. That's one thing I'm thinking of just a second ago. I should have gotten on the projected amount that they've gotten. Although they've chipped individual ones out and sold them off to people, stretches, and sold them away to museums and so on, and yet they still have these stretches out there and then in their own museum. And just in 2009 or so, they found another stretch. Not as well defined, but yet it's still pretty nice. Anyhow, they found that one area, and they call it the ballroom dance floor or something. And it's because they all seem to be gathering around there and gathering really and doing some little thing, maybe some little mating dance. Who knows what's going on there, because there's little trails leading in from here and there, but right here they're all just a swirling. So maybe it was a couple of groups meeting up and then boom. But what happens? Well, they don't all run off in one direction. We can't see that. And in fact, it doesn't look like you can count all the ones that came into there, came out actually, and what's going on here. But yeah, anyhow, I mean, some of them are so well defined, it's just silly. And you get some rusty water in it, and it just shows up like crazy. Like, I believe this is the new ones that were just found. And if they clean it up totally, it might look better, but I don't think they're already saying that they're kind of eroded. They're not going to look like that. Bam. So what's left there? And you can tell that they've got impressions on their feet. Now there was this, and there are places where you can see these huge ones, those bathtub ones that I was talking about, that are below the water in places too. And this, looking at you, they have to be way bigger than a mammoth. You know, I mean, I've seen elephants in the graph, right? So this had to have to be some brontosaur kind of ideal, you know, here that you see in that. But there's also places where you can swim, and up on this ledge here, there's just dinosaur tracks. It was in a perfect place. You can bring your dogs there. There's dinosaur, dog, dinosaur tracks. And a lot of them look like that, but here's some of those old ones. Oh, this may be the picture of the real old ones. There's a few pictures of them before they got ruined. And there are little humans and other ones that are coming through there, and this is uncovered parts of it. But after they found that they you know, come in and ruined them, like I was talking about, there was groups out there that went just farther down and excavated all the soil off the part of it, and here's a whole nother run, and here's one we're running up into here, and so they did it in a few different places, and then looking down the stretch and up the stretch, they found a few more places, and then excavating upon those, they found all these other ones and stuff. So it's pretty neat. But there's only humans showing us part, running in through 2 places in that one picture there, and I believe 1 in another, and then the one that got ruined, if not more. Here they got a plaque on that, and it talks about the dinosaur tracks. And funny, if you had time to pause it and read it, I know it's real small, but what they used to do here in these giant big ones was when the river got trapped down, channel cat or catfish would get caught inside there, and they would hang around, and you could catch them like you go noodling and catch them real easy. So they were that big and that deep. Not just the little footprint three toads that we're looking at, but the big ones. And it's well known. It remained a novelty. Recovered about Discovery 1910, but I believe it was 1909, and then 1910 they had some people come out, and then woo, in the 1930s it became a deal, and then again here they got it all going, and in the 60s leading into the 70s, and then the Christian guy came in and did their thing, and then the Christians bought it, and then that went to the other people and so on. Like I say, here's the kids dinosaur park and valley. And let me see if I can find some of those dinosaurs that they have. So here they are excavating a slab. So like I told you, they've taken a bunch of them out of here. So there's a whole lot. I don't know the total count. That's what I was getting at earlier. But they've taken and chiseled these out like almost a monolith here, and taken it and sold it to different places and so on. And then there's certain singles that have been sold. So here's Dallas, and it's just southwest of Glen Rose, and Dinosaur Valley Park is on this Paluxy River as it goes through here. And of course this is a big sand wash that all this happened in the first place. That's like right in here, and all this would wash out and wash out, wash out. But whenever this all flooded big, it would wash and push over, and so this was a buildup that had happened. And so in that buildup that had happened, these footprints were made. But now this is 107 million years ago or something, when these creatures existed. So this has to be chalked up along with that idea of, I mean, you can see a guy's handprint inside of the, yeah, we were able to do this. This was pretty cool. Go down there and check it out like that. A lot of times people have taken pour water in them, but we had enough water sitting in them. It was pretty much like this. Then there are other ones that are kind of that brontosaur look that are huge like this. But there's ones below the water that you can see. And most of those big ones and the famous ones that everybody like are those allosaur. But there are a bunch of little ones too running across and so on, which you'd say, hey, the allosaur was checking this guy out. Oh, and they've got these dinosaurs I was telling you about for the kids and for pictures and things like that. And you get in front of it and you can take a picture with it. One neat one I've seen with this one is somebody sitting there on a ladder that they brought or something, and they're trying to hold up flowers for it. And of course he was going to eat them instead of like, ooh, swoon or whatever. That was kind of hilarious. But the other ones that they do with this, let me see if I can just find one here and zoom out. Yeah, so sorry to change back in topics. So those are those new ones, as it describes new dinosaur tracks at Glen Rose. And that's the new set we were looking at just a minute ago. Let me see if I can find the kids ones, because, well, like in that little picture you can see there's a whole bunch of little dinosaurs. But let me see if the pictures, see if I can show you what I'm talking about that they do with this as a joke. Well, what they'll do is they'll have the kid there and the dinosaur, and you're supposed to act like the kid's running away from it, right? And if you crop it out just right, get them in the right angle, it looks better. That's kind of an ankylosaurus, so that's called sylvosaurus, but lives in sylvan lands, giant turtle type thing. Yeah, so here's another different slab that's getting pulled out. So, like I said, so here's one of the tracks that had a human in it and everything, but this is after it got ruined supposedly off of it. And this is a human track in a dinosaur track. And this is the one that I said, well, this is the one that overlaps on a human. So it's just cool there's dinosaur tracks, but again, there is this anomaly. So this goes in that bucket along with the other things that I showed. Just recently we did a video which prompted me to talk about this and then do one eventually here about dinosaurs showing up some DNA still in them. Because, just thinking about it, people, if you took a whale and an elephant and you put it in Montana and you let it go through the winters and summers and winters and summers and winters and summers, I don't know how long you'd be able to get tissue that looked like that out of it. I don't know how, in the best of circumstances, trapped somehow just special in everything, it still won't work. Well, we had the Ice Age 10,000 years ago, and then for, tens of thousands of years before that, they were under a freeze and a thaw and everything. That's fantastic. But before that, they were out. And they went through another freeze and then out, another freeze and out. And I don't know how many times I could throw a piece of chicken in and out my freezer and out and in and out and get DNA out of it. It's remarkable we still find mammoths that have some tissue in it and all those type of things, but then finding the dinosaurs that are almost at that level, and it's like, what? It's just they're in Montana, so they're not in permafrost. And the same situation over in Siberia. They have mammoths that are just jutting out of things, and wolves and lion cubs and so on. So it makes me rethink things a lot. If you find something like this, it's like, do I rethink how long it takes for sedimentary rock to form in all the myriad of ways that it could have possibly made these tracks over tracks over tracks? Or do we start rethinking a timeline? Or when actually these certain dinosaurs were gone? They would have had a huge foot that looked like that. And so, yeah, right here in the edge of the water, and whenever we went, that's where a few of them were. And then there was places like this, and there's literally all right on here, and you can sit and swim at it now and everything. I think you still can. Here's smaller ones, and here again, there's human footprints running out across it. This isn't one where they're connected to each other. I just missed it. So, oh yeah, I was trying to show you these shots. Yeah, so here's the idea. So you get your kid out there, and if you get him get him or her in the right spot, you can actually do to where it's like, ah. And they've also got some velociraptors like that, and they're all like a pack of them, look like they're coming this way, and all you got to do is kind of pose it out, hella vacation photographs, huh, guys? Rather than just standing in front of it. They've even got eggs that have dinosaurs in them, and then little kids, if you're small enough, can get in the other egg. So here's part of the exhibit that's in the museum. So they've got a set of tracks that are running through the museum here that show you some real well-defined smaller ones and larger ones and so on. And they described the different dinosaurs that in it. And it's pretty neat here to even go down to that area. Another thing that was neat from that area that we went to when we were hanging out down there was a wildlife park that they had there that you can go in. It had a pretty good selection, and the setup and everything. It's pretty nice and not too expensive and so on. It's Fossil Rim Park too, so it's pretty cool. But again, whenever this whole area gets dry, let me see if I can get into where you can see it. When the whole area gets dry, you can see where these dinosaurs of different types. Now there's this big old round ones, thumb, 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 going through here, but there's also that three-toed guy, thumb, 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 thumb. Who's chasing who or what's going on here? And it runs literally through this, and it keeps going and going and going. And right up there it kind of ends. But if you rip up those trees and all that dirt that's there, like they have done in this whole area, that's whenever you find all this crap. It's pretty amazing. Just that alone is really amazing. Along, the Montana find where there's a dinosaur graveyard that's just blown up. Which is for what reason? Like in the Wayback Machine, there was this flood that was there that was kind of like the flood we talk about, the Younger Dryas, that killed all them off, and they washed all up in one area. How do you get human footprints in Texas 107 million years ago. They weren't wearing cowboy boots. There's one just below water. That's like it was when we were out there, where some were dry and some were like this. And then we went to the other part, and luckily they had sandbagged it off to where they were dry instead of being like this because they had just rained. Rivers running through there a little bit more. But it's one of those rivers that all dries up. There's somebody just pointing at one over there going, look, there's one. And see this riverbed right here? That's just like that riverbed we were looking at a minute ago. Only problem is there's a good amount of water through here. And if you get up in a little drone looking down up here, you probably notice there's dot, dot, dot that looks a little like a left, right, left, right. What's that? And if this area ever dried up, I bet you'd find something too. And or run over there into that sandbar that's there. Anyhow, quite an anomaly with the human footprint thing. And again, whenever we were kids, we used to tell this as like a ghost story, along with other stories like Bigfoot and the Boggy Creek Monster, which is not too far from here in Falk, Texas. I did a video about it a few years ago. But this is another anomaly where, when I was a kid, again, Flintstones, I'm thinking that's possible. And then a little later, they had the Land of the Lost with the kids, running around where they got taken. Marshall and Holly got taken over a waterfall and ended up in the Land of the Lost, where a situation like this was going on somehow. And all the Americas apparently had this ideal that it was really a Land of the Lost until 10,000 years ago. That really may not be the effect. But this is far beyond that. To the point that you're trying to put A and B together and it comes across pretty weird. And nobody has been able to show striations and things that would indicate. I mean, the push-up from the dinosaur's toes, three-toed coming in, the push-up from that, and the human footprint that's just a foot beside it is deeper than the rim of that one. I.e., could have happened before it or after. But then in the other stretch, it's like left, right, left, and then there's not a right, because there's a big dinosaur coming through veering over here, and he stepped right there, and there's nothing. Whereas if it would be the case as what you're talking about, wouldn't there be a right? Right? Oh, well, it eroded away right here at this one point, different than the 107 that we're talking about down through here. So, yeah. And no, this isn't one of the ones the guy got chipped up or do anything like that either. Yeah, there's a hoax thing that came out, if you look up on it too, where these guys made these Bigfoot footprint looking things and stuff and tried to pull off some crap at some thrift shop someplace, and he tried to say it was from there when this was all popular. Let me know what y'all think down in the comments. Wonder what's up under that sandbar over there. Peace.